topic is production theory. So what all things we are going to learn today is what is production, what are the concepts are there in the production, like how to determine what is the level of or the amount of quantity to be produced, what is the concepts behind that, what are the laws, what are the laws for the long run, what are the laws for short run, and we are going to understand all this with respect to graphs and a simple one-liner explanation for each of the subtopics. So that's what we are going to cover today, and in between, like, there are some calculations and all which we are going to see in the Excel sheet along with the calculation part and the graph. So that was today's agenda. Let's get started. So first, what is production? So everything that deals with the conversion of any kind of inputs, that is from raw materials to the output, that is the goods which can be produced by the next level of consumers, or we can say the end users. Okay, so that is all about concept of production. Now the major factors, there are n number of factors, but the major factors contributing to the concept of production are land, labor, capital and enterprise. Now land is what? So it is something which with the help of which we generate income called as rent, or that is one of our resource over which we establish our organization or the company, which is one of the major contribution to the production. Okay, then labor is a unskilled, semi-skilled, highly skilled. So this again depends on what level. Okay, if you are saying labor, that doesn't say that administration is not a labor. Okay, transportation is not a labor. So every kind of effort that is done by any human comes under labor. Okay, now the supply of labor again depends on we'll see that, okay, this much labor if we are seeing, if suppose the 10 members are there, okay, X is the output that we are getting. If 20 are there, Y is the output that we are getting. So based on the output that we expect and based on the income that we can put into or the finance or capital that we can put into for labor, based on that we are going to decide how much labor do we are actually going to use for the production in this cycle, maybe a quarterly or maybe a monthly or weekly. Okay, so that was labor. And capital is the money or the amount that goes into for running a business. Now finally enterprise, this is the actual building or an I can say a tangible asset or a non-tangible asset, which is like conceptual object or entity which is used for running the business. Okay, so it's like a building for the tangible sake, and a non-tangible asset, I can say a concept or an entity which is used for running the business. So these four were the factors of production, like the major factors. Okay, next we have production possibility curve. So this is also known as PPF and transformation curve. So this curve we are going to show in a minute. Now what does this says? Okay, so first thing, production possibility curve deals only with the two goods. Okay, now what it says is, provided that we have certain amount, okay, we have only a limited or threshold capacity, okay, that only 100 rupees I can spend in this week. So what happens is, it compares the two products. Okay, if you want to have 100 rupees, if you have only 100 rupees for suppose, okay, so if you want to spend your 100 rupees completely on product A, you can generate 100 units of A. Okay, similarly if you want to put your 100 rupees completely into a good B, you can generate 4 products. So this is one combination, this is one combination. Similarly I can go with other combination, saying that with 100 rupees I can spend I want to generate 90 units of A and 1 unit of B. So what based on this graph is plotted. So what this graph is says is, you have given me certain limit, okay, that you have only 100 rupees. So in that 100 rupees you want both A and B. So I am going to show you the combinations of A and B that you can have with the amount that you have set. Okay, so that is a constraint. So based on that I can have this combination or this combination or this combination. So those points I have plotted here. So it's like, if suppose here it is, so what this point is saying, 60 and 2. Similarly this point is saying what is this point, 90 and 1. So this is a curve that is generated, which is showing the possibility, production possibility, which came from the restrictions that we have. So we can choose either of them. Now how to choose, that we will consider based on the other constraints that we have. So production possibility curve is, I hope that the concept is clear. Now here A is not only good, it might be the good or service. Similarly, B is not only good, it might be a good or service. So this varies based on the kind of organization and the kind of decision we want to take. Okay, so that was our production possibility curve. Next is our production function. So in production, right, what all factors are in what all factors plays a role, like labor, capital, time, technology, money, and hell lot of things. Okay, so all the combination of those variables, we say function of all those variables will give us a Q, that is a quantity. So here we are going to determine the output based on all this. Okay, now how I am saying all this. Okay, why? Because, okay, let's see, LB means labor, sorry, LB means land and building. Now K means capital. So why we are seeing K as capital, not C? Because in future we are going to use C for something called as cost. Okay, L is labor, M is material, raw material, T is technology, and small t is time. Okay, that is mentioned here. So all these things we can change. Okay, land and building might change. Yes, there is a possibility, right, that it can change. Similarly, labor can be changed, capital, all these variables that can be changed in long run. So we are going to have a function of that to give us what is the output that we can have. So long run, all this can change. That's why this is called a long run production function. Similarly, when we are coming to short run, for suppose take 1 month or 2 months, or like short span. Okay, because for some organization 1 month can be a very big duration, for some organization even 1 year can be a small duration. So it varies again for the organization to organization. So when we are considering short run, it depends, for different organization it varies. Okay, now for short run only the labor and capital can be changed. Now the land and building, suppose the enterprise in which you are operating cannot be changed in a very short run. Okay, because too much time is spent on deciding itself. Okay, so in short run we can change only these two variables. That's why we call these two variables as a function of short run. I hope that is clear, the production function for long run and short run. Okay, now what is the use of these functionalities? Okay, so based on this, okay, we can of course get the output that is coming out of based on the inputs that we are giving in terms of L and in terms of K. Now for a long run production function, we are going to study based on some of the curves or some of the graphs which, with the help of which the management can take decisions. So those graphs which are helping us in taking decision for the long run are called as isoquant curves or isocost lines. So those two are different concepts. So with the use of those two concepts, we are going to make some decision in the long run. Okay, so yeah, now there are some limitations, because as we have seen in the graph, here you go. So here we can see that only two can be considered at a time. Okay, so that is one of the limitations, and it assumes a smooth and continuous curve, which is not true in real world, because there will be too much discontinuous in the data, and because of various factors like the change in price, or you can say situations like demonetization, COVID, okay, and competition, technology upgrades, and all. So there are too many things because of which there might be discontinuity in the graph. So that is one of the assumptions we consider, that the decision that we are going to take is based on the smooth and continuous curve. Okay, so that was about short run and long run. Now we are going to study this long run production function based on the laws called returns to scale. Now these returns to scale are in multiple factors, so we are going to study that one by one in the same video. Okay, now those are the laws which are again explained by isoquant curve. So we are going to see curve one by one different. What is the isoquant curve? What are the types of isoquant curves? So those we are going to see. Okay, next we have law of diminishing return. So basically what law of diminishing return says that when suppose I have a labor and capital, okay, when I am employing labor and capital, so this concept is very important and very easy to understand. So let's take an example. When we opened a hotel, okay, and we are employing the labor and capital, it is running very good, and as soon as we are increasing the labor and capital, we are getting the rate of income or the rate of return, okay, that we are getting is continuously increasing, very good. Now after reaching certain threshold, okay, so that was stage 1, where as soon as we are increasing our labor and capital, the returns are getting increased. Okay, so here we are not only talking about returns, here we are talking about rate of returns. Okay, so that rate of returns is continuously increasing. After certain threshold, that suppose, okay, now we have reached that peak point. Even after that, if I suppose all the resources are sufficient for all the chefs or cooks that are working in my hotel, even after that, if I increase the number of people or staff of the cooking, okay, then what happens, there will be some small conflicts. The area that is allocated for working, it will be slightly congested for everyone. So even after I increase the number of people working in there and the capital, the returns will not increase with that much rate. So the returns is going to be, the rate of return is going to be decreased. So that is my stage 2. Now even after reaching the threshold of the stage 2, so my staff area is completely what I can say, it has been used at its max level. Okay, now even after that, the capacity of the staff area is for suppose 30, and I'm still getting more cooks to produce food, suppose 35, 40. In that case, everyone will have conflict with each other. They want to cook food, they will not have a resources to cook that, so they'll have a conflict. Now the returns, the rate of returns will become negative. So here, not only the rate at which the income is coming will reduce, but it is also possible that we might go into loss, because the negative returns means the rate, and the rate is reduced, that is fine. So the rate can also go into negative. Okay, so that's where we come as negative returns. So law of diminishing returns says that as soon as we are employing labor and capital, how our returns is getting varied, or how our returns is getting affected. So that's what this law says. Okay, it explains that when more and more unit of variable are employed, total output may initially increase at an increasing rate, then at a constant rate, and eventually it will increase at a diminishing rate. Now this diminishing rate is nothing but negative returns. So here it might be like the positive value or the negative value, but comparative to stage 1 and stage 2, it will be less. Okay, and if it is not stopped, then it will go into negative rate as well. Okay, so that was all about our diminishing returns. Now next is our production in long run. Okay, so as I said, isoquant curves is only for long run. Okay, now let's see an example of that. Right, so before moving on to diagram, just read this example. Okay, so for producing 100 calendars, 90 units of capital and 10 units of labor is required. So let's now just keep that in mind. If you got it, if you are able to interpret, well and good, otherwise just wait for some moment. Okay, now we are going to see the graph, then we are going to talk about each of these properties. Okay, let's move on to our diagram. Right, so what it is saying is, suppose we have a fixed amount that can go into the production for now. Okay, so based on that, it is giving us a combination of labor and capital. So here it is not similar to the amount that was going into PPC. Okay, here we are talking about if the f of labor and capital, that is f of LNK in the long run. So if you can see here, we have mentioned that isoquant in the long run, if you can see where it is. Okay, so production function for the long run was including all this. Okay, but why we are talking about only LNK? Because isoquant curves will be dealing with only two things at a time, and among all the factors that are influencing the production in long run, L and K are the most elastic in nature. Okay, so I hope you know what is elasticity, inelasticity and all. Okay, let's move on to our diagram. Yeah, so here the fixed amount that I have, based on that amount, how much labor and how much capital should I include so as to get the desired output. Okay, so what happens is, based on my suppose this unit labor, if I am taking 1 unit, then the unit capital that I can go is 10 unit. Okay, so if I have, like, suppose if I take 2 chefs, so the amount that I can spend on the resources like vegetables, fruits is 7. Okay, similarly if I take 4 chefs, I can the amount that I can spend on the other resources is 5. Similarly 5 and 3. So based on this thing, for say isoquant 1 is produced. Okay, now this data is not of this curve, but just take for example, based on this data we are producing a curve. Say that is an isoquant curve. Okay, now let's say that isoquant curve is IQ1. Okay, now this suppose this combination is based out of 100 rupees. Okay, so all this combination are also based out of 100 rupees. So I can see for 100 rupees I am getting isoquant 1. Similarly, for 200 rupees, I will get isocon 2. Now, units and rupees, don't consider them as same. Similarly, for more input, I will have the higher level of output. So here, isocon 1 is giving me all the possible combination of labor and capital that can be that is possible from the given level of amount. Okay. Similarly, if I say I have 200 rupees, then give me the combination. At that time it will give me isocon 2. Similarly, for 300 rupees, for 400 rupees, it will give me different isocon curves. Okay. So that was about isocon curve. Now let's talk about properties of this. First, if you can see this isocon 1, isocon 2, everything at any point, if you draw a straight line, okay, that is, for suppose if you draw a straight line on isocon 1, that is a tangent. So you can see that its slope is downwards. So slope is downwards, in the sense we call it as negatively sloped. Now why we are having negatively sloped? First thing is it is negatively sloped with respect to origin. Now why it is negatively sloped? Because when increasing one attribute, it is increased based on the sacrifice done by the other unit. Similarly, if I say my unit capital is increasing from 7 to 10, I can say 1 unit of labor has been sacrificed. So because one value is increasing based on the sacrifice done by the other, it is negatively sloped. Okay. Now higher isocon. So as I say that I have 100 rupees, I get isocon 1. As I say 200 rupees, I am getting isocon 2. So you can see isocon 2, 3, 4, it is continuously increasing as I am increasing my inputs. So what this higher isocon says is, the more the input is, the more is the higher, the more is the isocon level. Okay. Because if I give more input, of course the output that I am getting is also more. So that was the second property. And the third property is two curves cannot intersect at each other. Why? Because isocon is giving me a combination for 100 rupees. Similarly, if isocon 2 is giving me a combination of 200 rupees, but if isocon 2 and isocon 1 intersect at any point, can I say that 100 rupees and 200 rupees at that point are giving me the same level of output? Which is not possible, because inputs are different, so for sure outputs will also be different. I hope the properties of isocon curves are clear. Okay, so first thing was slope downwards because there was a sacrifice of one for the other. Next are next are convex. What I'm saying, curves are convex, and then we have higher the isocon, higher the output. So these are the properties of isocon curves. Next we have marginal rate of technical substitution. So as we have seen that one attribute has to sacrifice for the other to increase. Okay, so the rate at which one is sacrificed for the other unit to increase, that rate is called marginal rate of technical substitution. So here you can see we are substituting one more unit of good based on the sacrifice done by the other good or service. Okay, next we have forms of isocon. So let me show you another graph here. So our first form of isocon is linear isocon. What it says is, if we are studying this curve, shows that the perfect substitutability between the factors of production. So here we are saying that the labor factor and the capital factor are perfectly substitutable. So let us understand this with the help of an example. Let me take this. Okay, so suppose we have this y-axis and this x-axis. This x-axis represents our labor. Okay, and this y-axis represents our capital. Now our we can say, let's suppose this is our curve and this is our origin. So what how this line is produced is, suppose we have a capital of this much amount, so the labor required for that will be this much amount. Similarly, we go for other combination of capital, we say this much amount of capital and this much amount of labor, and the third combination, this much amount of capital, this much amount of labor. So based on these points, our this isocon is found. Okay, so this is not real time, because we don't have a perfect substitution that if this is decreasing, then we can, if this is decreased by 1 unit, this can be increased by 1 unit. So that's how we are getting one more. So if this is decreased by 1 unit, this is increased by 1 unit. So that's how this curve is found, which is not a real time. Okay, so that was our linear isocon. Next we'll move on to our L-shaped isocon. So L-shaped curve is close to reality. So what it says is, suppose this is our capital and this is our labor, similar to the previous one. So here what we say is here our origin is our output. Okay, so if we want to zero output, then we don't need any capital or any labor. That makes sense, right? Now when we want to have a certain level of output, okay, at that time we need to have certain capital and certain labor. Okay, so this is our output curve. Okay, this is L shaped, and it is also known as our I don't know how to spell it, but it is like Leontief isoquant. Okay, so if we want, if this is our current output, okay, if this is our current output and we want to increase our output to this much, okay, so in that case what is the requirement? Let me repeat the statement again. This is our current output. Okay, this circle is our current output. Now our expected output is this much. So here our assumption is, if suppose this is 2 and this is 10, okay, so what we say is the ratio of this is 5:1. Okay, now if this is 2 and our output was 3 previously, now output is 6, that is our output is increased by what proportion? By double. Our output is double, so it means our ratio which we are using of capital and labor should also be doubled. That is, now it should become what? This should remain same. Okay, so this was 2 previously, now we are assuming our labor is 4 and our capital will become, it was 10 previously, now we are saying 20. So as our output is increasing, the ratio or the change or the proportionate change in the labor and capital will remain same with respect to proportion. Okay, proportion will remain change, but since our output is getting doubled, the inputs that is required for labor and the capital will also be double. So this was our L-shaped isoquant curve. So these are the two forms of isoquant that we are considering within the scope of this video, right? Next we have elasticity of substitution between the factors. Okay, so in our L shaped we have seen that there is a proportionate change. Okay, so the addition of more labor does not increase the output, nor does the addition of more capital. This is the case of perfect. So we need to have both of them increasing in the proper proportion so that our output is increased. So there we can see that there is some fixed proportion, which is again in real time it might not be possible. So the rate at which, if you can see the related extent at which one factor is replaced by the other. Okay, so here we can say, right, so here from 10 to 7 we got 3 units decrease so as to increase 1 unit of labor. Similarly from 7 units we decreased to 5 units, that is again the 2 units got decreased so that we have 2 units of labor increase. So this is I can say real time because it considers all the other factors. So based on that this data is given. Okay, so the rate at which one is sacrificed to increase the 1 unit of the other, we call that as MRTS. Okay, that is marginal rate of technical substitution. So that rate, right, so that rate has a formula which I will show you in a minute. So if that rate of change, okay, we have a divisibility formula. So there we calculate the change in capital, that is change in K, with respect to the change in labor. So that difference of capital with respect to difference of labor, we call it as MRTS. Now if that divisibility is resulting with respect to S is equal to 0 or S equal to 1 or S greater than 1 or less than 1, that what interpretation can we bring out of that S value? That we call it as elasticity of substitution between the factors. So here factors are labor and capital. So we can say when S equal to 0, when our numerator will be 0. Okay, so numerator, what is our numerator? It is capital, because our formula is change in capital divided by change in labor. So here we can say it is impossible to substitute capital and labor are in perfect substitute because there is no difference, or I can say the rate or the proportionate change is not possible. That's why we are getting 0. So when S equal to 0 means change in K divided by change in L is equal to 0 means what? That change in K is not there. Okay, if change in K is not there means change in K will become 0. So if numerator is become 0, then we are getting S equal to 0. So what we can say that we are not at all able to bring the change in capital. Okay, so we cannot substitute or change the capital. So that's what we can say, that it is already in perfect substitute and the change we cannot bring in the capital. S equal to 1. Okay, so S equal to 1 means what? The change in labor, that is the difference in labor, is same as that of change in capital. That's why the numerator and denominator will become same and the output is 1. So we can say there are perfect substitute. Next we have s is greater than 1. So if you think mathematically, when we can say s is greater than 1, when our numerator is greater than denominator, so our above number is more than the below number, we can say our output is greater than 1. So when that is happening is, what does that means? That our change in capital is more than compared to change in labor. So here we can say that factors can easily be substituted to each other. Similarly, the opposite of that, that is s is less than 1. In that case, we are concluding the exact opposite of this. That is, here we are saying that it can be easily be substituted. So s less than means that it cannot be substituted. That is possible to certain limit. So here the certain limit we consider that it is near to impossible. Okay, I hope this elasticity does make sense. So if you consider, okay, forget labor and capital for a minute and simply think about elasticity. So if it is equal to 1 means it is a direct proportion. Okay, if it is greater than 1 means elasticity is there, and it is what I can say is the change is affecting some other factor. If s is less than 1 means it is going to inelastic. So I can say it is not perfectly elastic, but it is slightly elastic in nature. So that means that the change in some properties is not affecting the result. So that is what elasticity means. Okay, next we have isocost curves. So again we will understand this with the help of one graph. So let's take an example here. Control C, new slide. Okay, let me remove all. Okay, now let's try to understand. Okay, so let's say this is my factor A and this is my factor B. Okay, now we were talking about the isocost line. So far isoquant means the focus is kept on quantity. Now isocost means the focus is kept on the cost. Now here cost is nothing but the production cost. Okay, so production cost. So production cost, say I have 100 rupees. Again we'll take the same example, and with 100 units, if I put all 100 rupees in the good A, then this is how much I can produce the good A. If complete 100 rupees I put on the B good, then I can say that this, okay, one second, if complete 100 rupees I kept on good B, then this much is what I am able to generate from that 100 rupees. So similarly, if I say that I reduce 1 unit of A, I am able to get this much unit of B. So based on that, if those are all the points, so those are nothing but locus. So based on this combination of those locus, if I'll see that I am able to generate this line. So this line is based out of what? Production cost. So production cost curve, we call it as a isocost line. Now as we have already seen, what is isoquant curve? That is the quantity. Okay, so when we try to form a quantity out of given combinations, we get these kind of curves. You remember properties which says that it is convex to origin and all. Okay, so based on that, if we see, we get these kind of curves. Okay, now here my intention is, this is my production, this is the cost of production based on different combination of A and B. Okay, so here A and B is nothing but services and goods, but isoquant we consider labor and capital. So just keep in mind, this is labor and capital. Okay, here we talk about two goods or goods or services, right? So based on this combination we are getting this graph. Okay, now as I can say that I have one production cost line. So you remember third property of isoquant curve, where we say the higher the isoquant curve, the higher is the output. So here we see that our production cost line is touching which isoquant curves? It is touching this curve and this curve. Okay, so out of this, the output produced by which isoquant curve is more? Of course it is the second one, because the more higher the isoquant curve, the more higher is the output. So within this cost, the maximum output that I can produce is at this point. So I will choose the second isoquant curve. So what did we do? Okay, I see that the cost that I am having, from that I can use this much amount of labor and this much amount of capital. Based on that, I produce my isocont curves, and similarly, based on the amount that I have, how much the labor capital I can actually use. Okay, I can pay how much labor and capital. Based on that, I found the iso cost. Now with this combination, I choose that how the max output that I can produce is given to me by second isocont. So I will choose this. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So that was about our right. So that was our iso cost curve and iso quant curve. Now the combination that we have seen, right? Iso quant curve, the iso quant curve, the curvy things, and the iso cost curve is our straight line curve. Now in the combination of that, we have chosen a common point, which is nothing but our cost minimization path. So here we simply, let's see the definition. A producer will select that combination of input which puts him on the highest isoquant, okay, at the given cost. So this given cost constraint is nothing but our iso cost, and this highest output is nothing but our highest isoquant. So we choose that such that our so the way we choose the point is nothing but our cost minimization path. So producer equilibrium means what? So now we are going to study this theory which we have already considered the concept in the graph. So what it is saying is, with respect to producer, suppose you are producer, then what is your aim? That you produce maximum profit. So you choose the quantity of input and output in such a way that you produce maximum profits. Okay, that is the highest isoquant in the given cost constraint. So the expansion path, this path connects the optimal input combination as the scale of production expands. So we have seen the L-shaped isoquant curves where we have a production path which is increasing, and we can see as our output level is increasing, the proportionate change how it is increasing. Okay, so that was our expansion path. Next is our returns to scale. So here we can see that explains the proportionate change in the output with respect to proportionate change in the input. Okay, so we will take one example to understand all three returns of scale: increasing, constant, and diminishing. Okay, so let's say, one second. Okay, so let's say I have 3 units of input. Okay, for 3 units of input, I am able to generate 10 units of product A. Okay, so this is my output. Now when I say that I am increasing my units to 6 units, so here I brought what proportion of change in my input? I doubled my input, but here I am getting 22 units as output. So here I can say the 2 units of output. So here I can say I doubled it, but the output I am getting is more than double. Okay, so here I can say greater than 2. So when I am getting when I am doing certain change in input and the output that I am getting is more than that proportionate change, I can say it is a increasing rate of returns. Okay, similarly, when from 3 to 6 units, if I did the change in my input and the output that I got is 18 units, so here what is the change? The input side I doubled it, but the output side it is less than 2. Correct. So this is what is happening. The returns of scale is decreased. So as I increased my input to I can say into 2, that is I doubled, my output didn't double. So here I can see that there is a decrease in the returns of scale. But if it is producing 20 units, so I can say that as I have doubled my input, my output is also doubled. So that is a constant rate of scale. Okay, so I hope this constant returns and increasing returns and diminishing returns is clear to you all. Now the final thing that we are going to see is the formula for this elasticity. So because while explaining I simply use the conceptual, right? So let's consider one formula for it, right? So before dealing with the proportion, let me create one more slide, new slide. Okay, right. So the first thing that we need to find is the proportionate change in the proportionate change with respect to our capital and labor. So that is nothing but our marginal rate of technical substitution. So this we get by I can say a change, or I can say K new minus K original, that is change in my capital divided by the capital. So capital original minus capital new. So this is the difference. So here we subtract new original and here we subtract original new. So the so this will give us what this will give us a negative sign. So this we can write as change in capital by this is change in capital by change in labor. Sorry, so K is capital and this is labor. Okay, so because we are writing here delta, so it is like latest minus previous. So because of that change we write minus here. So this complete thing is our denominator. Okay, now our intention is to find the elasticity. So elasticity is found with the proportionate change in labor or capital divided by MRTS. Okay, so this is what my elasticity, and it is represented by sigma. Now based on this we have interpreted how we can interpret when it is 0, how it is 1, it is greater than 1, it is less than 1. So 0 means what? That it is not okay, let's see elasticity is 0. What does that mean? And what does it mean when elasticity is 1? So 1 means it is like this is in complete proportionate. Okay, greater than 1 means that it is perfectly substituted. So 1 means the perfectly substitution will come into agreement. Now greater than 1 means it is easily substitutable. Less than 1 means it is not elastic at all, and 0 means not elastic, and 1 means it is impossible to substitute. Okay, so if you know the concept of elasticity, you can know how to interpret 0, how to interpret 1, greater than 1, less than 1. Similar concept you will apply on the proportionate change versus MRTS. I hope that makes sense, and if you have any queries with respect to the concept that we have discussed so far, please write down in the comment. And if you like my explanation, you can share and subscribe. Okay, so that's it for today. Again, if you have any queries or if you have any suggestions, please write down in the comment section. That's it for today. Thank you.